Rishaya uchuhu Tvaya khalu puranani Setihasani chanagha Akhyatanyapyadhitani Dharmashastrani anyuta. The sages said, "Respected Sutta Goswami, you are completely free from all vice. You are well versed in all religious scriptures, the Puranas and histories, for you have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A Goswami, or the bona fide representative of Sri Vyasadeva, must be free from all kinds of vices. The four major vices of Kali Yuga are illicit connection with women, animal slaughter, intoxication, speculative gambling of all sorts. A Goswami must be free from all these vices before he can dare sit on the Vyasasana. No one should be allowed to sit on the Vyasasana who is not spotless in character and who is not freed from the above mentioned vices. He should not only be freed from all such vices, but he must also be well versed in all revealed scriptures or in the Vedas. The Puranas are also parts of the Vedas, and histories like the Mahabharata or Ramayana are also parts of the Vedas. The Acharya or the Goswami must be well acquainted with all these literatures. To hear and explain them is more important than reading them. One can only assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures by hearing and explaining. Hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtana. The two processes of Shravana and Kirtana are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this is the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It begins by describing an important incident that happened in Naimisharanya. There were many sages, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Naimisharanya is an important holy place, mentioned in the Vedic literatures, mentioned in the Mahabharata, and many other places. So the sages had assembled there, and they had thought over, because it was actually the Sandhya between Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga. Dwapar Yuga was ending and Kali Yuga was beginning. And so it was at that time. So, being naturally concerned about the circumstances around them, and in this particular case, the circumstance was that a new yuga is going to begin. It's a momentous point in history. A new yuga, change of yuga. And with the change of yuga, many characteristics are going to change. The living conditions are going to change. From one yuga to another. And among all the four yugas, Kali Yuga is considered to be the most degrading yuga. meaning it degrades human life, human energy. And so naturally they're very concerned. Oh, a new yuga is going to begin. And so they discussed among themselves and they thought that we must find answers for a few important topics. We should discuss a few important topics. And they analyzed and they finalized 6 important topics. So they realized that there are 6 important topics that we should discuss. And then discuss with whom? You have to discuss with a very qualified person. Suppose you have some legal problem. You go to the sabji market and talk to the man selling brinjal and tomatoes. I have a problem, can you help me? So you have to go to a legal expert. In the same way, they found among them, there was one great, very, very expert person, Suta Goswami. That's what happened in the previous verse. Ta ekadatu munayaha pratur hutahutagnayaha satkrutam sutam asinam. Sutam asinam. They offered him a elevated seat. Satkrutam, with earnestness, with due respects. Satkrutam sutam asinam paprachur idam adarat. Adarat paprachur. Prapachuhu means to ask questions. And adarat prapachuhu. With great respect and earnestness and sincerity. Sometimes we want to ask a question so that everybody will say, oh great, very intelligent man. Or sometimes people don't want to ask question because I may appear foolish or something. Various considerations. But here, these sages had very sincere concerns. Praprachur idam adarat. And before they started their 6 topics that they had identified, they are respectfully presenting to Suta Goswami about his own credentials. Tvaya, referring to him, Khalu Puranani Setihasani Chanaga Akyathanyapyathitani Dharma Shastrani Anyuta. Puranani cha itihasani dharma shastrani. Puranas, itihasas, dharma shastras, and all of this tvaya adhitani. You have studied them very well. Akyathani. You have not only studied, you have also explained this in the past. And you are anagha. You are spotless. Anagha means spotless, free from all vices. And hence, we want you to tell us something. The sages said, Rishaya Uchuhu, respected Suta Goswami, you're completely free from all vice. Anagha. You're well versed in all the religious scriptures, Dharma Shastrani, the Puranas, Puranani, and histories, Itihasani. For you have gone through them under proper guidance, Adhitani. And you have also explained them, Akyathani. So, Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport, he's first commenting on the word anagha. And he's describing anagha and agha. Agha means vices, and anagha means somebody who is free from vices. Agha means also sinful. So, Prabhupada is pointing out that in Kali Yuga, there are four activities are considered to be agha or sinful. And number one, illicit connection with women, animal slaughter, intoxication, speculative gambling of all sorts. I'm sure when we come in touch with Krishna consciousness, we hear this very early, that one should be free from these things. Actually, much later in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I remember when I was a student like you and I was coming in, reading Prabhupada's books and coming to the temple, I had heard about these four regulative principles. And then somewhere in the back of my mind there was a question, why did Prabhupada arrive at these four? Why not 5, why not 8, why not 10, why not 2? How were these four picked up by Prabhupada? Actually, you will find later in the Srimad Bhagavatam, these very four are described as the vices of Kali Yuga. And when I heard about it, when I read about it, it was very reassuring. See, here is Srila Prabhupada, an Acharya, exactly following what the Vedic literatures say. He's not making up something. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada went to America and he started talking about Krishna consciousness in New York City, 1965, 1966, he talked about these four regulative principles in his classes. And who were his audience? They were young Americans, fully indulging in intoxicants, not just cigarettes and alcohol, even more. Not even proper to mention. And they were, obviously from birth, they were eating meat, animal slaughter. I remember once one American, I was talking to a young fellow, and when I told him we don't eat meat in the 80s, maybe now it's more prevalent, different in America and other places. He said, "Wow, you don't eat meat, you will die." I said, "All my life I have not eaten, I am not dead. I'm not dead." Really? So you can see a country where people believe that if you don't eat meat, you will die. And to such audience, Prabhupada was talking. So they were taking intoxicants, animal slaughter was considered part of their lifestyle. And illicit connection with women, especially all of these young boys and girls whom he was preaching to. They were all just living together. No question of marriage or anything. And gambling. I don't know how much gambling they were doing, but at least. And to them, Prabhupada was telling them that you should give up all this. When Prabhupada was incorporating a society, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, there was one lawyer who was helping him to make the legal documents, an American lawyer. And he would come in his suit and meet Swamiji. He would ask him something. Then one day, he asked Prabhupada. Those days they were calling him Swamiji. So he said, "Swamiji, I've heard about your 4 rules. I think this is not very easy for us Americans. You are trying to start a society, and I'm trying to help you. But if you want your society to do well, you must change some of these rules. So Prabhupada said, no, I cannot change the rules. I have come here to represent. I represent a great tradition. I represent a great knowledge tradition. And I have come to teach that to Americans. And if I don't get anyone to follow these things, it's okay. I'll go back to my country. But I cannot change these principles. I cannot compromise on these principles just to please the Americans. See, Srila Prabhupada was very strong on all these anagha, because this is our tradition, this is our culture. Vedic culture is that you cannot be agha and thinking that I'm advancing in spiritual life. So, a Goswami must be free from all these vices before he can dare sit on the Vyasasana. Strong statement. No one should be allowed to sit on the Vyasasana who is not spotless in character and who is not freed from the above mentioned vices. So recently someone brought up this question in our temple. Then we decided that no, this is called class asana. That's called Vyasasana. So don't worry, otherwise you have to immediately step down. Because very high qualifications, spotless in character. Prabhupada's written like that here. So anyway, he should not only be freed from all such vices, but he must also be well versed in all the revealed scriptures or in the Vedas. The Puranas are also parts of the Vedas, and the histories like Mahabharata or Ramayana are also parts of the Vedas. The Acharya or the Goswami must be well acquainted with all these literatures. And the sages of Naimisharanya are saying, Sutta Goswami, you are well versed in all of these. Puranani, Itihasani, Dharmashastrani. You are well versed in all of this. And you have studied them. Adhitani means to reflect, to study, to be learned, to have considered it, learning with a lot of attention. Not like sometimes we learn for our exams, something, get some marks, go on, last few days, few weeks. No, this is like adhitani means studied, reflected on all the various concepts. That's philosophical subjects are like that. You have to ponder, you have to reflect on it. And how this can be applied in this situation or that situation, reflect on it. And akyathani. And also you should have explained it. You have already explained it. Because you are adhitani and akyathani in the Puranani, Itihasani, Dharmashastrani, Anyuta, and you are anagha. You are a qualified person. Please tell us. And Prabhupada has made a nice statement. One can only assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures by hearing and You see, this is something called assimilation. Assimilation is absorption, right? We have the process of, in the body, the food that we eat is assimilated. The nutrients are assimilated. In the same way, this knowledge is to be assimilated, absorbed, internalized, and it should manifest in our life, in our activities, in our character, in our thinking. It's not just some kind of a scholarship. It has to manifest. I don't know if I have told you this story. There was one devotee of Srila Prabhupada, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, American. Very young they were all, maybe 68, 69. You know, Srila Prabhupada went to America in 1965. The first 1 year was a lot of struggle. And finally in 1966, in July, Prabhupada incorporated the society. At that time he had a rented house. He was calling that a temple. They were all calling that a temple. There were no deities. It was just a bare hall. And there was one picture, Radha Krishna picture somebody had painted, and there was one place, one sitting place, not this asana, Vyasasana. Prabhupada would come and sit on that and do kirtan and give class. That's all that was happening. And they used to call it the temple. So, and those young Americans, slowly one by one, they were coming to meet Prabhupada and they were becoming very interested. And then Prabhupada started talking about the four regulative principles, and then he talked about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He talked about the tradition that he comes from. So there was one, and then after that Prabhupada started traveling and more temples were coming up. So there was this one devotee, Prabhupada was going to come to that city, and so he was very eager to arrange some programs for Prabhupada. And so he was looking around where to arrange, how to arrange, and there was a university. And so he tried to, this was before internet days. He couldn't Google and see what the university, like that. You may all not know. There used to be those days, I think not even in the 60s was not. Later on in the 90s, there used to be something called Yellow Pages. You all don't know those things. It's a different kind of a direct telephone directory. So this was even pre-Yellow Pages. So this devotee figured out that there was one American university, and that university had some South Asian studies. And then in that South Asian study, he found there was one professor who was specialized in Indian religion. Oh, he got very interested. Prabhupada has come from India, and he always talks about the great Indian tradition, India, sacred India. And then this professor knew Sanskrit. Oh, he's even closer. And then he figured out, and then he found that that professor knew Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he had done his PhD dissertation in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he is the right person I must go and meet. Because Swamiji also talks a lot about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his philosophy. And here is a professor, American professor, I must go and see him. How he will be. Somebody who has studied Sanskrit, studied Indian religion, studied Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he called and he fixed an appointment for him. And the professor said, yes, you can come over. During lunch, I'll meet you in the cafeteria, something like that. So he was very eager to go and meet, and then finally he went there. He went to the cafeteria, he was at the table, and then they figured out, and he said, Professor so-and-so, yes, I am that professor. Come on, sit down. And then he was having a cigarette. So yes, I've been studying Chaitanya philosophy. The devotee was shocked. He thought, Swamiji, I've seen Swamiji, how he is. I thought he must be at least half like Swami. So, it's not so. That somebody may be very learned, but somebody, if he has not assimilated that knowledge, if that knowledge is not manifesting in their character. Because you see, the test of the assimilation is, it's like this. What are your tastes? Because tastes drive us. Right? It's the taste for something that will force us to indulge and act and be involved in such activity. It's the taste. And if we have assimilated spiritual knowledge, naturally the material tastes will vanish. If we are still having material tastes, and if those material tastes are attracting us, engaging us, and we are indulging in that, that shows that we have not yet assimilated the knowledge. Very nice examples Prabhupada gives. Prabhupada is so wonderful in Akyatani, wonderful explanations. Prabhupada gave this example. Very, very interesting example. Just like when we were all small children, we were attached to toys. So small boys, I'm sure you all had some toys, something. And then wherever you go, sometimes you have to carry the toy also. Right? I see sometimes mothers and fathers come to our temple with the child, and the child has brought one small teddy bear also. And when they go, yes, they have to carry that. So children are like, they're very attached. I'm sure all of you were also like that. We were all like that. But then as we grow, we give up our attachment to toys. The symptom of growth is that you have given up your toys. Say at the age of 20, you're still attached to the toys. When you come here, when you go to college, carry. Hey, what's he? He's not grown up. We will say. In the same way, when we grow up in spiritual knowledge and spiritual understanding, we are expected to give up. It's not that somebody, your mother or father told you, now give up that. No, as you grew up, that went off somewhere in the loft, maybe out of the house also. You naturally give it up because you have grown. Your tastes have changed. In the same way, spiritual assimilation means these things will go away. When I was in college, I was practicing Krishna consciousness. And weekly once there used to be a cinema. And then we were a few of us, 3-4 boys, we were practicing Krishna consciousness. And on that day, Friday evening, very difficult cinema. Because the whole hostel, everybody goes to watch cinema and we are just 3-4 of us. Hostel is all deserted. And we only a few of us. It was very difficult because a very early stage. And then we used to think, let's go and see how all other friends are in total Maya. Let's go and see them. And we would find a reason like that and somehow slowly slip in and watch the film and come back. And then after that, it was not good, Why did we mess up our consciousness with all this? We would regret. But then again, after 1 week, we would find another reason to go how our friends are all suffering. So you see how this is how tastes are. Tastes have not gone. So once the tastes have gone away, then you won't be interested in those things. So, in Krishna consciousness, when we say these 4 regulative principles, no illicit sex, illicit connection with women, animals. It's not that we have to, what is this whole life? I have to be struggling like this to follow. No, we will come to a stage where, forget it. Because we grow up in spiritual life. So, there will be professors, there will be academicians who know philosophy, all of this. But they have not actually assimilated it so that it manifests in their tastes, in their pursuits, in their character, in their lifestyle. So that's also very important. A speaker, a teacher like Sutta Goswami, they are saying you are anagha. One can only assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures by hearing and explaining. And then Prabhupada makes a statement here. To hear and explain them is more important than reading them. But Prabhupada is making a distinction between reading and hearing. You see, and then Prabhupada says, the two processes of the hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtana. And the two processes of Shravana and Kirtana are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. See, it's so important, Prabhupada emphasizes this, that we must hear from the right source. Because this knowledge is not just some kind of a scholarship that we are trying to achieve, but it is something that we want to understand, appreciate, and develop right convictions. And to develop right conviction, we must hear from the right source. Otherwise, we will not develop the right conviction about this knowledge. Just like this professor who is smoking and then he will tell about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can even maybe give some philosophical talk about that. But then what is his conviction? He is just doing this for some academic purpose. I came across one professor of religion and he knew Bible, he knew history of Bible, he knew history of Christianity, he knew many other things also. Then I was interacting with him, then I asked him, you've studied all of that, do you also go to church? And, oh no, I'm an atheist. Shocked. But you know so much Christianity and all that. Yes. Study of religion. When we study religion, we study the religion and how people behave because of a certain belief, and that is study of religion. Like that. So they study religion, they don't even have to have a conviction in that. You see, this is some kind of a scholarship like that. In our tradition, it is not that. You must understand, you must appreciate. It is meant to transform us. Education is meant to transform us. Not just gather some knowledge. By using that knowledge, I can earn some livelihood. That's what modern education has finally become. Very unfortunate. Education and knowledge was supposed to be of such important value, meant to transform an individual. So we must hear carefully from a right source. Just like you see, in our country, when you talk about, this is one more point. Prabhupada was very careful when he was presenting Krishna consciousness in English language. In our country we say, mythology. So, Puranic and such things are called mythology. So there are some cinemas are there. If you see Ramayana, Mahabharata, they will be called classified as mythology. Mythology comes from the word myth. Myth means a belief, an imaginary thing, not reality. It's not true, it is just some myth, mythology. But Prabhupada was very careful when he was translating. See, sa itihasani, puranani, the supplements to the Vedas with illustrative narrations. This is how Prabhupada is translating Purana. Prabhupada is not saying Purana, mythology. You ask, normally in India, we all say mythology. These are actually supplements to the Vedas with illustrative narration. See how carefully Prabhupada is translating these things. Sometimes they say, oh no, Puranas are all some nice stories somebody has created just for, making it interesting. No, that is not the way the Shastras are treated. They are supplements to the Vedas. Vedas are having certain philosophical concepts, and now you want to understand that more, it has to be supplemented. It is something to be added on, and you can add on to that, you can supplement the Vedic knowledge with illustrative narrations. You take the example of a great king or a great sage or some great dynasty or something that happened, and how they behaved. People who had this knowledge, how did they behave? By their behavior, we can understand what they have understood and what they have assimilated. That's the illustrative narrations. It is not to be treated as some imaginary story. And itihasani, along with the history, itihasa, again, we will normally say itihasas are all history, are all some mythological thing. Prabhupada is saying, no, they are historical occurrences. It happened in different parts of the universe. And this was a historical. That's why you see in our country, when you talk about Narada Muni, the moment you say Narad, oh, Narad. They even say sometimes if somebody is, hey, don't be Narad. Like that. So they think that Narada is somebody who will simply create conflict and dissension and disturbance between two groups of people, something like that. But when you read Srila Prabhupada's books, Narada Muni is a pure devotee. He's an exalted personality. He's in our parampara. We hear that. And then we develop a kind of a respect for Narada Muni. You see how when you hear from the right source, you will develop the right, these are all nuances. We should be very careful. Because Prabhupada is trying to present the true personality of Narada Muni. Who is Narada Muni? Yes, there are instances where Narada Muni does certain things. But why does he do? There is a reason. Just like in the Krishna book, you will see Kamsa arrested Devaki and Vasudeva because he had heard that eighth child of your sister is going to kill you. So he arrested them. And then actually he wanted to kill Devaki. So Vasudeva requested, no, don't kill. Only eighth child. She's not even had the first child. She's just married. Don't worry. I'll give you my word. As soon as, why eighth child? Every child that is born, I'll come and give you. Then Kamsa thought, all right, now I am safe. All right, but they should be under, I should have a watch on every child that is being born. So they should be in the prison. So Devaki and Vasudeva were in the prison. And the first child was born. And Vasudeva said, no, I have to go and give this child to Kamsa. Devaki said, no, please don't do that. Your mother, obviously. But Vasudeva said, no, I have given a word. And he brings the child to Kamsa. And Kamsa is very happy. You are keeping up your word. That's nice. But however, the danger is actually from the 8th child. You can take it back. So Vasudeva is very happy. He comes back. And Devaki says, yeah, I know my brother. He's a wonderful brother. Then Narada comes to Kamsa and says, don't take chance. See? And he holds a flower. And he says, how do we count 8? You can count 1, 2, 3. You can start here. This first one can be the 8th. Depends, it's a circular thing. How you count. So we don't know how that celestial voice, that prophetic voice, how that voice has calculated the 8. So don't take a chance. Kamsa says, yeah, what you're saying is very true. Goes, brings the first child, kills. Now why did Narada do this? Why does he do these kind of things? So, Acharyas explain these things. You see, if you don't take the help of the Acharyas, if we will not understand, the Acharyas say, Narada did that. Narada wanted to accelerate the Lord's descent. And when a wicked person like Kamsa is not a great guy. He's a wicked person. He's just self-centered. He's thinking about his safety, his enjoyment, even at the cost of his whole, as a king, he can't be a king. He does not have the qualifications of a king. So, in order to accelerate the Lord's descent, in order to see that the Lord, because the Lord becomes anxious if his devotees are suffering. He will become, no, I must come. In order to accelerate, in order to bring forth the Lord's appearance, he did this. So these are all very, very extra. Narada Muni, who's a great devotee, who knows the heart of the Lord, who knows the mind of the Lord, how to facilitate the Lord's descent. He may do certain things. That's why it is said, a pure devotee who is in touch with the Lord, his activities, not easy to understand. In fact, actually Kamsa didn't know. Krishna was growing up in Nanda's house, Gokul, and then he was shifted to Vrindavan. Kamsa didn't know. He was sending different asuras and they were trying to kill all children. They come back and say, we have finished all children. Some of them, most of them didn't come back also because one child had finished them. So he had heard these things, but he didn't know. Then again Kamsa goes, when Krishna was around 15 years old, Narada goes to Kamsa and he says, you know that 8th child of your sister? Actually, your sister and your brother-in-law, they tricked you. They sent off the child. Is that so? Where is the child? You know that child growing up as son of Nanda and Yashoda? That is your sister's 8th. Really? This is what I wanted to know. No one would tell me correctly. And so it was he who went and gave him. So immediately after that, Kamsa calls an elderly person in his family, Akrura, and says, now you go, bring the 2 sons of Nanda And then Akrura says, why do you want to bring? No, I've come to know he's the one who is actually going to kill me. I have to bring him and I have to kill him. Akrura was a great devotee. And he's telling him, go bring Krishna, I want to kill him. But Akrura is fully confident. He is Krishna, he is the Lord, how can kill him? All right, I'll go and bring him. Maybe your days are numbered. You are asking for this. So, Narada went and did this. Why did he do that? The Narada was once again facilitating another turn of Krishna's Leelas. Krishna had certain purpose to do the Vrindavan Leelas, very, very special purpose. And now it was Krishna's intent also that I have to do many more things. And so he wanted to bring him from Vrindavan to Mathura. And that quickly led to end of Kamsa's life. And then many other asuras he had to deal with and so on. So we have to hear carefully from right sources so that we develop the right convictions. This knowledge is meant for assimilation, for appreciation, for developing conviction, for understanding the purpose of life, so that we move in the right. You see, again and again Prabhupada is saying, Dharma Shastrani. See how nicely Prabhupada translates. Scriptures giving right directions to progressive life. Life is meant for progression. Especially human life is meant for progression. Animal life, there is no such thing as progression. From birth to death, they do the same 4 things. Eating, meeting, sleeping, defending. Ahara nidra bhayamaitunam samanyam etat pashubhina ranam. Ahara nidra maituna and ahara nidra bhaya. These things are standard. There is no more progression in animal life. They are the same. Human life is meant for progression, meant for understanding more and more things. You see, there's one neurologist, very interesting, he gives one explanation. The animal's brain, the difference between an animal brain and a human brain is that the animal brain is more or less fully developed at the time of birth. And he says the human brain is not fully developed. It's very plastic. And he gives the example, just like an animal, the moment it is born, in a few minutes, it stands up and starts walking and running around. Right? If you've seen a calf being born, in just about 1 hour, it'll slowly pull up its legs and then it'll fall a little bit and then again stiffen up and starts walking. The brain is already developed. It can give the right kind of signals. The muscles, they start. Whereas how many months and years we take to learn to grow up and walk. As soon as a baby is born, it not start walking. It's so small, baby. So brain is not, it's still developing. And actually modern theories of neurology says that human brain can go on and on and on, develop, even after 20 years, 30 years. Of course, there's rapid development up to 5th year, 3rd year, and then it slows down, but still human brain. So by Krishna's design, human brain is meant for developing more and more understanding. This is the difference between an animal brain. Another example he gives, just like fish. Just like when the mother gives birth to the fish, as the fishes are coming out, immediately they are swimming. If they don't know swimming, what will happen? They'll go down. So the brain has to be developed. Krishna has made the fish brain fully developed and it comes out and it starts swimming because it's in the water. So you see how Krishna has designed all. So human brain is very plastic, meant to grow. And for that growth, you have to get the right environment. You have to get the right person. You get the wrong person, your plastic brain will get hardened in the wrong direction. You see? So, Prabhupada says, scriptures giving right directions to progressive life. Human life is meant for progression. But when we don't have this spiritual knowledge, this understanding, we think progression means I have got 10,000 rupees, I have to make it 1 lakh rupees. And from 1 lakh rupees in my bank balance, I should make it 1 crore rupees. After 1 crore, I should make it 10 crore rupees. And when I have got assets and bank balance of 10 crore, then I'll have a heart attack and leave all the 10 crore behind. Oh, empty. What progression did we do? You see? What is this progression? This is not called progress. So, progressive life is this very concept. Prabhupada uses this concept many times. Progressive life, it's such a beautiful expression. Life is meant for progressing. We must be better today than we were yesterday. We should become better tomorrow than we are today. This is progression. That progression is not material progression. I've got 10,000 rupees tomorrow, I should become I should have 1 lakh. What is the use? It's not material progression. It's spiritual progression. Whether I have become richer with knowledge and enlightenment, understanding, proper conviction about the reality of life. What is the reality of life? What is this world about? What is this life about? We must know. We can't be, if we don't know what life is about, what the world is about, what this creation is all about, what is the purpose of this creation. If we don't know these things, if we have not reflected on these things, it's just like the animal life. Animals, they do their, dog gets up and says, what is this world about? Dog cannot think about it. Dog is a mammal. Dog has a brain which is very developed according to science. It's a very developed brain. But if you study a dog brain and then a human brain, many things are similar. Neurons, synaptic junctions, all of those kind of things, very similar. But a dog brain cannot understand these things at all. So we are very special as human beings. We are designed for progression. And if we don't get the right inputs, we won't know how to progress. This is the important aspect of our culture, Vedic culture, to bring the right inputs at the right age in the human form of life so that we can make progressive life. And so we must hear from the right source. Even Vedic literatures, if you don't hear from the right source, we will come to wrong, incorrect conclusions. That's why Prabhupada emphasizes that many places, the Vedic literatures. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source, by submissive hearing. Our hearing must be submissive. Submissive hearing does not mean you cannot ask questions. You must ask questions for furthering the understanding. Such questions are very valid. Not a challenging question, I know better than you, what is this? Not that kind of challenging question. What's the use? What is the benefit of that? So, submissive hearing, one who has heard from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. So, even as all of us as young devotees, even as we learn Krishna consciousness, whatever we have learned, we should try to explain to others. And when we explain, it will become more clear to us. We should always be looking for an opportunity within our circle of friendship and acquaintances. If there is an opportunity to share and explain this knowledge with another person. And that person may ask you some question and you may stump you, oh, I didn't know that, I can't answer. Don't have to worry. You can say, no, okay, I understand. You have a good question. I'm not able to answer. I'll come back. Come and refer to the Prabhupada's books or ask more experienced devotees. They'll give you more experience. You can go back and tell. So, hearing and explaining is the way to understand this knowledge more and more. I'll stop here. If anyone has any question, I'll try to answer them.
What is the line to read them is... What a difference this to read them. Others saying better than that is hearing an explanation. In our case, we have to read.
Yeah. When we say read, we have to read carefully written, and again Prabhupada is saying, is identifying the read from the right source. Suppose somebody is just reading so many books and so many things, and one will get confused about too many things. So, hearing, because, when you hear, there is that spirit of the knowledge, there is a certain conviction that is passed on, which is very special. Even when you hear Prabhupada's lecture, sometimes you would have read, and when you hear the emphasis that Prabhupada is bringing, you may miss out when you have read it. So even for us, although reading Prabhupada's books is very important, even hearing Prabhupada's lectures is also important, even for devotees. So in hearing, there is I can convey certain urgency, certain emphasis I can create, which when you're reading, you may miss out. So even between reading and hearing is more important than reading. Like that. Yes.
When devotees hear about these kind of statements that one has to be anaga,
Okay.
spotlessly pure,
Okay.
things like that. So at times for devotees who are not yet taken Krishna consciousness as a full-time service, those who are studying, working or whatever, for them there is a fear created that I have to live a spotless life if I have to be in ashram. And right now I am not able to practice. Oftenly I falter on my commitments that I have to follow chastity or celibacy, and then things like that. So then it creates a fear that if I take up and if I am not able to follow, then what will happen? So that fear of failure keeps them away from serving Krishna dedicatedly.
Okay.
So what would you have to say?
Okay. Yes, Srila Prabhupada's books are describing the highest standards. We must know what the high standards are. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada gave very practical instructions and he was very accommodating. Yes, this is our goal, this is our objective, and it may take many years to properly understand and come to the level of good practice. That does not matter. One should keep trying. One should not get discouraged. In fact, these things should not create fear. It should only create positive enthusiasm. that yes, this is where it is. And in the ashram also, there were examples of devotees, even in the ashram, they would make some mistakes. Prabhupada was very tolerant, and if anybody criticized that, Prabhupada said, no, our ashram, our temples are like hospitals. In the hospital, there are sick people. Not that they are cured. The difference between people in the hospital and outside the hospital is differences. People outside, they have not even diagnosed that they have a disease. They are thinking everything is all right. Whereas some they have come to the hospital, got admitted, they are under treatment. And when you are under treatment, still some symptoms of the disease may manifest. Suppose you go to the hospital and you see, oh, so many sick people. Well, what is this hospital? Hospital is meant for sick people. You should see that they are under medical care. They are getting better. So it's not, there's a saying, there's a Christian saying, for every saint had a past and every sinner has a future. So no problem. Every sinner has a future. And somebody has become saintly, he must have also had some past. Of course, somebody was a born saint, very rare. In Kali Yuga, very, 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 very rare. So don't have to worry so much. And Prabhupada's mission was to accommodate and very, very nicely manage. In fact, if you see, there is a difference there was one important difference that Prabhupada did from what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had done. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur created Gaudiya Math as the institution to propagate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. And it was a matha. In the math there were sannyasis and brahmacharis. And if a brahmachari has to get married, they had to leave the math and take up job or something. So Prabhupada said, I did not create a math, I created a mandir. Prabhupada said, I have created mandir. And he made a provision. Even if somebody wants to get married, he can remain married and be in the mandir and do service. And even have children. And bring up children also in Krishna consciousness. So he modified that arrangement. And that's how in ISKCON we have brahmacharis, we have grihasthas, we have sannyasis, we have vanaprastha. All. So one needn't fear. One has to be earnest. One has to be serious. And one should feel that I must serve. Lord has a mission. I must participate in that mission. I get this opportunity. Guru's mission, Krishna's mission. So one should not become fearful, and some lapses may happen in life. One should not get discouraged. That is okay. Krishna will give more strength. By Krishna's mercy one can overcome those weaknesses. It's possible. Like that. Yes, please.
In Hare Krishna Prabhu, in our material education, if you have any doubts, you simply ask the professor. They will simply tell, go to some books, some publication like that. Same way in spiritual education, if you want to go to some Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, which books are preferable? Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam is already translated by Prabhupada, but remain knowledge. But if you want to go to that, which publications are certified?
Okay. Normally, Srila Prabhupada has given the Vedic literatures, because you see the Vedic literatures are too vast. In fact, there is one statement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warning that one should not read too many Vedic literatures also. Bahushastre bahuvakya chitta brahmahaya. Sadhya sadhana shreshta nahaya nischaya. Very beautiful analysis by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If somebody is reading Vedic literatures, too many Vedic literatures, Bahushastre bahuvakya chitta brahmahaya, one will become confused. Brahma. Oh, what is this? Sadhya sadhana shrestha nahaya nischaya. What is sadhya? What is sadhana? What is the process for spiritual advancement and what is to be achieved? One will not be able to discern properly. You see, the Vedic literatures are designed in such a way. Imagine, this is another nice example Prabhupada gave. Imagine there are 100 steps to go to the highest spiritual plane. And if you take the Kali Yuga population and you put them on the different steps according to their spiritual advancement, the step 0, step 1 will be overcrowded. Step 90, 100 will be very, very rarefied. Hardly anybody there. So, the Vedic literatures are designed in such a way, whichever step you are in, it is meant, there are Vedic literatures and instructions which will take you to step n to n plus 1. Somehow move them up. In fact, even other religions in the world are also like that. For instance, Christianity. Jesus said, I have many more things to tell you, but you are not ready. He was telling them basic things. Thou shalt not commit adultery with your neighbor's wife. Why was he saying that? Because they were all people doing such things. Thou shalt not kill. Because they were going around killing people. There was no civilization there. It was an uncivilized world. That's why they crucified him also. It was not a civilized life. Even in that situation, how they can advance. That was the thought of Jesus Christ. Whereas in India, it was a very civilized life, varnashrama, classification. Of course, not the jati varnashrama, which is an aberration. But the true varnashrama vibhagashaha, guna karma vibhagashaha, and proper social organization. There was a king who was a law enforcer. He was ensuring that there was law and order in the society. If somebody is breaking law and order, king had his army and constables to set right things. In uncivilized world, everyone is unto himself. Everyone is a law unto himself. It was not like that. And that is why there was more spiritual progression opportunities were there in the Vedic society. And Vedic instructions are multifaried and according to whatever level one can advance. Now, Srila Prabhupada and the Chaitanya tradition, they have analyzed all of this. Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipuno Saddharma Samsthapako. The Goswamis, they were expert in all the Vedic literatures and they have identified what is the literature to be read. And Srila Prabhupada has said the Gita and the Bhagavatam and then the Chaitanya Charitamrita. These three are more than enough for us to advance in spiritual life. Prabhupada said Bhagavad Gita is the science of God. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us love of God. And Chaitanya Charitamrita teaches how to intensify that love of God. Such a beautiful description, you see. You should know the science of God, not some sentimental understanding. What is God truly? And then you must develop love for God, because that's our position. Bhagavatam helps us to develop love of God through the different instructions and examples. And then Chaitanya Charitamrita helps us to further intensify that love. So these three literatures are more than enough. However, if somebody is interested in Ramayana or Mahabharata, some of the ISKCON devotees have translated Ramayana and Mahabharata. If somebody is interested, one can read that. But generally, Prabhupada said, a disciple is satisfied with whatever the spiritual master has given. And Prabhupada said, I have given you everything for you to go back to Godhead. So it's more or less adequate. Sometimes I get stuck also sometimes. Somebody will ask some very intricate question in the Ramayana or the Mahabharata. And I also say, I don't know, I can check up and tell you. Something like that. So we may not know everything, but we must know the Vedic literature, Gita, Bhagavatam, nicely. We should read that and we should absorb ourselves in that. Like that.
Hare Krishna, so why soul get attracted toward matter? Like soul's nature is Satchidananda.
Yeah.
It's get attracted toward matter.
Okay. It's like this. The soul is, what did you say the soul is?
Get attracted toward matter.
The soul is Satchidananda Vigraha. Soul is Satchidananda. Right? It has the characteristics of eternal existence. It has knowledge, consciousness, and it is happy, Ananda. These are the characteristics of the soul. Now, how will that soul get that Ananda? That soul will get Ananda when the soul relates with the Supreme Soul, Krishna, in a relationship and in service. Every soul has a loving relationship with Krishna because we are part and parcel of Krishna. We are an amsha of Krishna. He is a person, we are a person. And two persons are related means there is a relationship of some kind of a relationship exists. That's the meaning of two persons related. Just like suppose you're going in the train, there's somebody sitting next to you. 6 hours you travel, you don't even talk to him. No relationship. Right? And when that person gets off on the platform, his relatives have come, he's embracing them, shaking hands with them, smile. This man they are related to him. I was not related to him. So when we say Krishna is a person, we are a person, and we have a relationship with Krishna. This itself, you reflect on it. We have a relation with Krishna. We used to have one employee in our Akshay Patra, a woman. And sometimes we would meet some people. And then at some time I would tell, you know who she is? She is the niece of Montek Singh. They would say, And she also would say, You know our Montek Singh, who was the Planning Commission, head of the Planning Commission. During Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, Montek Singh he's a professor of economics somewhere from American University, very well placed, very intelligent, very great man. And she would also feel, you are connected to a big man, you feel, it's not a small thing, no. We are all connected to the biggest person in the whole universe. Krishna. We are not ordinary people. Foolishly we are thinking we are ordinary. No, we are not ordinary people. We are related to the Supreme Lord Krishna. We have a relation with Him. And further Prabhupada explains, we have an intimate relation with Him. When Krishna is making the statements, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, not a small thing. We are related to the Supreme Lord. You see, I had one visitor in the temple in Bangalore, and then I had read in the newspaper that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are coming to Bangalore city, and they are hosting a dinner, and they are inviting some important people. And then this man came, and then he was talking, and then he said, I've got an invitation. I'm going to have a dinner with Bill Gates. And just he got an invitation to go meet Bill Gates. He was so proud about it. And he was making sure everybody knows about it. Like that. Just to get invitation to go and be with a big man. They are so proud. You see, it's not a small thing. Ordinary people won't get that invitation to go to Bill Gates' dinner. So he's a big man like that. So, to go and have an interaction with a big man for a short while and feel connected, that big man recognized me and I got invitation, you feel great. What is Bill Gates? Only has wealth, only small wealth in the total wealth of the world. Krishna is the owner of all wealth, including all of Bill Gates' wealth. Right? He's the Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasa Shriya. All knowledge, all wealth, all power. See? So, and we are intimately related to Him. Intimately related. It is a loving relationship. And so, for that love to manifest and to facilitate that love, one more characteristic Krishna has given to the living entity, just like you talked about Sat, Chit and Ananda. Soul has these characteristics. Soul has consciousness. These are all the characteristics of soul. It has consciousness. It is eternal. It never dies. Another characteristic of the soul is that it has free will. It is not a programmed robot. Programmed robot will just do its function, pick and place, this and that, or whatever it is programmed to do. We are not like that. We have been given free will, thinking opportunity, so that with free will, I can love Krishna. Without free will, love is not possible. That's the nature of love. Prabhupada gives this example. If I show you gun and say, love me or else, you will say, I love you, Prabhu. Please let me go. You see, love cannot come from the barrel of a gun. If I say, if you want, you love me. Otherwise, I can create a facility for you if you don't love me. If that freedom is not there, there won't be love. There is one joke. There was USSR. Here we have an expert, Russian studies. So there was USSR. And after that there was 1980s somewhere, there was liberation and then all split up. And the USSR was a communist government, very strict. No one can speak against the government. So that was the Cold War time, America, democratic, and USSR, superpower. It's just communist. So once an American met a Russian. And so the American said, you see, I can go to Washington, D.C., I can stand in front of the White House, and I can loudly say, the President of America is a fool. He's the biggest fool. Can you say that? So the Russian thought for a moment and he said, yeah, in Russia also I can say the American president is the biggest fool. Nothing will happen. But you can't say that about the Russian president or premier or something. because you have no freedom there. See? So, freedom, free will is a prerequisite for love. And free will means you must be able to choose. Multiple options should be available. Suppose you go to a restaurant and you call the waiter, and the waiter says, you ask him, what do you have for breakfast? Sir, we have a lot of things, sir. You can choose whatever you want. We have got puri and sabji. So then you ask him, okay, what else do you have? Sir, you can choose, sir, but you can choose whatever you want. We have puri and sabji today. I mean, you must say there is puri, sabji, there is roti, there is idli, there is something, at least two things must be there so that I can choose. You can't say one thing and say, now you can choose. Choice means at least two things must be there, no? So, in the same way, for love, free will is required. Free will means choices have to be there. Without free will, it is not possible to have love. So Krishna has not only made the living entity Sat Chit Ananda, there are many more characteristics of the soul, and one of the characteristics is that the soul has free will. Free will means there is an opportunity to use A or B. When you choose A, when to be with Krishna, you are in the spiritual world. And if Krishna has given you free will and didn't give a second alternative, then there's no meaning to free will. There's no meaning to choice. Sir, you can freely choose whatever you want for breakfast. We have only one item. It's meaningless. So that freedom, free will comes with choices, and the living entity can make a different choice. And once the living entity, because the living entity choosing other than Krishna means, I don't want to love Krishna. And Krishna is such a supreme gentleman, he will not force you to love him. If you have a different plan, if you want to pursue a different plan, Krishna is the perfect gentleman. He'll say, all right, I'll make all facilities for you to enjoy, to have an independent life. I'll create a universe for you. Go and do what you want. You can try out. But one warning is there. Your nature is, you are my part and parcel. Your composition is, you are my part and parcel. Your constitutional makeup is, you are my part and parcel. If you serve me, if you follow me, that will make you happy. And that's why he creates a universe and lets the living entity go there and creates the law of karma where he can get high levels of enjoyment and all kinds of things he can do. But our deepest aspirations of eternal happiness, unmixed with miseries, is not available in this world. That's only possible with Krishna. Because this material world is designed by Krishna not only to give us an opportunity, but also to enjoy and be independent of him, but also to understand the folly of attempts to be independent of him. There is a great error in trying to be independent of the Lord. He also wants us to realize that. And Krishna very carefully gives that opportunity at an appropriate time when the living entity is ready for that. Otherwise, he will not thrust it on us. He will say, you can pursue your own enjoyment if you wish. So that's why the living entity can make that mistake, potentially. Like that. We'll stop here. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki, Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.